Good morning, everyone. Welcome back, all you Regs, and to all you Shinies. Welcome to the 1313 Star Wars Podcast, the most mediocre podcast in the Star Wars universe. I'm Tommy.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Jackson.
And today we are joined by StarWarsOnly.
Woohoo!
Hello there, everyone. Nice to be here.
So, StarWarsOnly, could you please give us a little rundown of your channel and what you do?
Well, speaking of mediocre, I do run a weekly Star Wars channel. I try to upload as often as I possibly can. It's mostly news-based. From time to time, I'll make a documentary or two about certain topics in Star Wars I find interesting, and every now and then I do get information I can share, but I can't speak for its reliability just yet. But yeah, I'm just a Star Wars YouTuber. I've always wanted to do this, and I kind of like not being in a certain group or anything, so I try to give outside-the-box perspective on Star Wars and just kind of what's going on in the fandom. I really like the culture of Star Wars, so I try to focus on that more than the drama and sometimes the basic level stuff of Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely see what you mean. The fans for Star Wars are the greatest, but then the worst kinds of Star Wars fans are the people that will only just hate Star Wars, and then that's all that they do is just hate it.
Yeah, it's easy to do nowadays. It's a very popular thing to hate anything new, and I think that's going to be a trend for a little bit. But I also think that with Star Wars, you can only hate on it for so long while be taken seriously. You know, if you just constantly hate something for multiple years, it's going to die out, and that movement, I think, will eventually kind of fade away.
Mm-hmm. I
It
totally
usually does.
agree.
And that's the other thing. It's very popular to dislike things, but I mean, at the same time, I'm the type of person where, and I know all three of us are, we don't really care about what other people have to say. If I like something, I like something, and if I don't, I don't. But yeah, with Star Wars, I feel like, too, it's just a loud minority of people on the internet. It doesn't represent anywhere near what the actual fan base thinks.
Yeah, I agree to a point. I would definitely argue that the minority of people who maybe are content creators or influencers in the Star Wars community who kind of give a negative influence or even perspective on it, it's kind of trickled into general audience, in my opinion. Like, I'll talk to people at work who don't know anything about what I do on Star Wars Only or that I run this account, or even people who see my Instagram account. If you look at the comment section, you'll find a lot of people who are just, for some reason, just negative towards it. And even people who I wouldn't take to be film enthusiasts still talk about Kathleen Kennedy, and they'll be like, oh, I hope she leaves Star Wars. And it's like, that's interesting because they never have a rhyme or reason for it, but they do talk about her track record with Star Wars, and I haven't loved everything she's done, but I just find it curious that this group of people who maybe don't like the new stuff, which is completely fine, they've allowed this negativity to kind of spread its way into just general people and casual audiences that you really wouldn't expect to fall for this kind of stuff. Like the whole Kathleen Kennedy being fired rumors. There's just so many about Lucasfilm Civil War, and everything's being SJW now. And even if I agree with these people in terms of not liking the new stuff, it's just crazy that they have now infected the minds of so many people in the community over something so small that a lot of it turns out to be not true, but it doesn't matter because we're already on to the next thing that we don't like. So what we didn't like and that was fake is in the past, now we're focusing on what we don't like towards the future.
That's 100% how it is, too. Before we kind of dive deep into the Star Wars fandom and all that stuff, I am interested in just kind of hearing how long you've been doing YouTube for, stuff like that. Because I've been watching you for, I think I mentioned it earlier, a little over a year. So when did you get started on YouTube? Because I think when I got into it, it was right around when, because last year around this time would have been, we were getting ready for Mando Season 2 to come out. And that's when I started to pick up on your channel a lot. So if you want to just kind of get into how you got into YouTube, how long ago it was, stuff like that.
I think I started in 2017. I originally came from Instagram. I have an Instagram account with the same name, Star Wars Only, and that started probably in 2014, just right when Disney started releasing a little bit of content from their Star Wars slate, and when they started kicking things into gear for Star Wars. It was a very good time, and I kind of realized early on, I don't like Instagram. I don't like Instagram at all, and unfortunately for anyone who's followed me on there, they really got to see a Star Wars fan go from a teenager to I don't think I'm a mature adult yet. I'm only 22, but I really was able to grow through that, and I just had a lot of toxicity on Instagram that I didn't like, and I noticed one of the reasons that is because it's all through text and messages, so I couldn't articulate my thoughts the way that I wanted it to, and I told everyone on Instagram, this is interesting, but I'm really more passionate, and I want to do something more on YouTube. And so I started that in 2017. I think I kind of grew a lot in 2018 and 2019, and that's largely because there was movies coming out, and I really wanted to stay up to date on it. I haven't been consistent on YouTube for the past 2 years, unfortunately, but during that time it was really easy to just make content, shit on The Last Jedi, and just get views, and I unfortunately fell into that category. But as time has gone on, pretty much after 2019, I came to peace with, I don't like the sequels. I think they were rushed, and I think the writing's a little off in some areas that I just personally don't like. But at the same time, I kind of fell out of love with the Star Wars fandom because they were saying the same things, but they just took those messages to the extreme. I didn't like Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. That doesn't mean I don't like Rian Johnson. And so as I've seen the fandom kind of devolve in that way, I was like, all right, I'm going to take a step back, and I realized I don't need to feed into that same kind of negativity. I can be critical while also being still fond of Star Wars and still looking forward to what's going to happen in the future. So that's kind of where my channel has gone for the past 2 years, and hopefully I'm here for the long run. But I'm mostly involved on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. It all just kind of started from a social media presence on Instagram, and I eventually built it into something with the YouTube channel.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, we are very much of the mindset of, for myself, I enjoy the sequel trilogy, and I know you guys do too. I definitely am more like into it. You know what I mean? But we're also of the mindset, like, if you just don't agree with us, that's okay. Like, we're not really that upset about it.
Just watch what you want to watch.
Yeah, and like the other thing too is like with those movies, it's when you're talking about the fandom devolving, it's like that's the first thing people say. When you mention Star Wars to like a casual fan, someone who doesn't know anything about Star Wars, like or like a more hardcore fan, the first thing they ask you is, "Oh, what'd you think about the recent movies?" And I'm like, I liked them, but like I don't really care to try to debate anybody on like, oh, well, did you like him? Did you not like him? And so I really think, I don't know, it's just such a weird talking point.
Like, I told because I just moved into college, I told my roommate that I like Star Wars, and he was just like, the first thing out of his mouth, he's like, yeah, I don't like the new ones. The new ones are bad. The new Disney ones are bad. I like the older ones. And I was just like, okay.
But it's
really easy to be critical. I mean, you can say, I've always referenced this. I really like the Joe Rogan podcast that he did with Kevin Hart, and Kevin Hart talked about how it's really easy to be critical of a movie by, you have 5 people in a room, and all 4 of them are like, oh, this movie, I don't know, we just call it a movie. They're like, I really like this movie, and Kevin Hart would be like, I think it's shit. And then everybody would be like, oh, well, why do you think that? And they're like, oh, the writing was shit. Like, it was bad. And it's really easy to dismiss something like that. And even as I don't love the sequels, but I can still appreciate the work that goes into it, and I'm not gonna, what would even be the word, disregard it or dismiss it like it's inferior or it's just not something worthy to be recognized because I don't like it. I don't like the prequels either, and so for me it's always kind of funny to watch prequel fans shit on the sequels as much as the original trilogy fans did to the prequels, and then pretend like they're not doing the same thing that happened to them. And I'm someone who grew up with the prequels. I love those movies, but as time went on, I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't like them that much. I got more into film. I got more into the actual art of making film, and I realized I don't think these are great movies. But that doesn't mean that people who like them are any less of a fan than I am, or if they're inferior to I am. I may, joke around and be a dick and be like, oh, if you like the prequels, I don't respect your opinion on film, but I don't actually mean that. I'm just, poking fun at people, but it's not supposed to be personal. And now Star Wars has gotten to a point where everyone does make it really personal, and it is weird because you see that with just common people. They're like, hey, what do you think of the new Star Wars stuff? And they're like, oh, it's absolutely awful. Like, they ruined their childhood. And it's like, damn, it's unfortunate to see history repeat itself after 20 years of what we went through with the prequel trilogy.
And that's the other thing, too. Like, the new Star Wars content that people might not like didn't go back in time and, like, plop itself in front of these people that swear they hate it so much and destroy, like, Star Wars as a whole for them or their childhood. It's like, you still like what you saw when Star Wars came out. And it's like, quite literally, if you don't like it, there's so much Star Wars content being made that it's like you can just literally like anything. I mean, there's more length of time of the Clone Wars than the actual movies. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you just don't like something, you could like something else.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing I think too, is we were talking about just last week on the podcast, because all three of us are probably like, prequels are our biggest,
yes,
like our favorite era, our favorite part of Star Wars, and we were talking about like I'm ashamed to be a prequel fan, because I'm like a closeted prequel fan nowadays because like I'll just see every person that just goes so aggressive on the internet about like hating the sequels. Like it's always an Anakin profile picture or like a clone profile picture or like some character from the Clone Wars, and it's always those people, and they're so aggressive about it. And it's like, well, you know, I do love the prequel movies and I do love the Clone Wars, but there are like episodes of the Clone Wars and there are parts of the prequel movies that I just cannot stand. Yes. Like I'll cringe every time I sit through those scenes with Anakin and Padme in Attack of the Clones. Mm-hmm. It never goes away. So it's just like, it's weird that, you know, people are so like right in their own mind that they're willing to just disregard everybody else.
The problem is that most prequel fans nowadays, they aren't prequel fans. They only like Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
So they're like, I'm a prequel fan. I like the prequels, but no, they only like Revenge of the Sith. They don't ever watch Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
So it's like, both of which I think are really good movies. Yeah. But it's just like, so I could say like I really do consider myself a prequel fan, because even though there's like garbage parts in like Attack of the Clones for instance, like the a kiss that haunts me, that part I hate.
Yeah,
but
that's like the Canto bite.
It's like the Canto bite.
It is.
But it's like, it's bad, but it's like I still like the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, that's what's kind of sad about it nowadays, is that people won't even acknowledge the faults of anything or anyone. Like I've seen this a lot with someone like Dave Filoni, where there's a lot of vocal support for him, where a lot of prequel fans are like, he's the next George Lucas, and it's like, okay, I'll take your word for that, but where were you when the Bad Batch was coming out? Because you guys were shitting all over that series.
Yes, 100%.
Star Wars Rebels, you guys have been shitting on all the Dave Filoni work that's been going on, and even before the prequels were popular, back in, 2008, when the Clone Wars actually started becoming an actual series, the Expanded Universe fans hated Dave Filoni. They hated George Lucas. And so it's curious that people can praise the prequels unequivocally and say, like, these are the greatest of Star Wars and these things are great. And when I say something like, okay, well, I don't like those, I love the original trilogy, and they're like, okay, well, the original trilogy is kind of boring and it's corny. It's like, yeah, you're right. It is. Like, I can acknowledge the faults in those movies because I love them and I can truly see what they did wrong. There's things that I don't like about the original trilogy. My favorite movie is Return of the Jedi, and that's the worst out of the original three. And when it comes to the prequels, they won't even acknowledge anything that's relatively bad about them. Like, they're just certain things that are just objectively true about the prequels in a sense, and sometimes they won't even acknowledge that. And I get art is subjective in general, but it's still kind of, you have to be able to realize the faults in the stuff that you love, and denying that is kind of what makes me lose a lot of love and respect for the prequel fans, because as someone who grew up with them, it's like, man, I really enjoyed these movies as a kid and they meant a lot, but as I saw the faults continue to grow and grow in my mind, I was like, all right, well, it's just not for me anymore. And people treat it like it's a sin. They're like, oh, how can you be a fan of Star Wars if you only like 3 movies? It's like, okay, well, I can say the same to you. I mean, if you don't really like the original trilogy, but you love the prequels, then you only love those 3 movies, and that's completely fine. But don't say that you have to, it's like gatekeeping. You have to like a certain amount of movies to be a true Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I only feel like I'm like the carbon copy prequel fan only with Revenge of the Sith, because in my opinion, and this is my opinion, I think that movie is flawless. I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's the best movie of all time. It's like, it's my favorite. I love it. I love the music. The VFX in it are groundbreaking and like astonishing, especially for the time. The story's good. The acting in that one was probably the most solid out of all the prequels. It's just a fantastic movie in my opinion. But that's just because I like it so much and have such a connection to it. I'm probably blind to everything that you might see and might be like, yeah, well, you could do this better. You this isn't as good.
Yeah.
But I
It's
think
totally okay being blind. Yeah, it's their thing. There's a movie I like called The Alamo, and it's largely because I'm from Texas, and I grew up with that kind of Southern pride and state pride in Texas. And this movie called The Alamo, I can't remember who one of the lead actors is, but he plays Davy Crockett, the congressman, and it is absolutely a bad film. I absolutely love it, and I don't see any problems with it. Like, if someone was like, all right, what do you really not like about the film? I can write that down for you all day. But in general, when I watch it, I'm like, I love it. There's not a second goes by that I don't enjoy watching that movie, and I don't skip anything. And so it's completely fine to be, like, blind to something like that because you actually love it. The problem is when you start putting that onto other people and telling them that, oh, you know, I'm not blind, you're blind. I hate that reverse stuff.
Totally agree with that.
we were, when you mentioned like people were taking a dump on the Bad Batch, like we would do like week to week, you know, as each episode came out, like we would the next day, that's when we'd record our podcast. So like the episode would come out on Friday, Saturday morning we'd record, and then I would watch it twice and take notes the second time I watched through it to like pick up on like the little member berries and like the little everything, all the little tiny stuff you missed the first time around. And every single week we would have the conversation about people just absolutely going at the Bad Batch for no, like, in my opinion, it was way over the top, like the hate for the Bad Batch. I can understand people not liking, you know, the episodes that weren't, you know, super like action packed, and I can understand the complaints that people have, and I can have a conversation about that. But people were just dogging on the show, and we're sitting here like, you know, the clones are one of my favorite part of Star Wars, and I love the idea of the clones and seeing them develop, and just having a show about clones and how soldiers behave in a world where there's no longer a need for their type of soldier. Like, what do? You know, all they've known their whole lives is to be a soldier. They don't know how to be a civilian. They don't know how to, you know, that's why they're with Sid, because it gives them some kind of normalcy in being, you know, some sort of way a mercenary, which is linked to being a soldier in their eyes. So, like, it's just cool. For me, that's an awesome show, but I can understand how it's not for everybody, you know, who likes Star Wars. But yeah, people were just taking a dump on that show.
Because I'd be on TikTok too and just like look around, and then like I just see video after video being like, Bad Batch is a mid-show. Everything is filler in it. Not like there's not a single
I hate the word
thing.
Filler.
I know, we would make that joke every week, is that it's the filler batch, or this episode was filler, before we would talk about it. But it was like, people lost sight entirely. And I saw a dude get fed up in the comments once, and he was all like, you guys just legitimately do not know what filler means. He's like, every episode, for the most part, really has been character development, because they're trying to introduce these characters to you guys and build it up so they can make more of this content. And someone was all like, well, when every episode, every week is character development, then it feels like it becomes filler. And then it's like, what do you want from us? Like, that's what they're trying to do, is develop a character. They're not trying to make another Rey, because the point that we've made before consistently on the show is that everybody says that Rey has no character development. That's one of the biggest words that gets thrown out there with her. And then Disney's is like, all right, let's develop the characters.
New characters, by the way.
Show. Nope, that's filler.
Not pre-existing characters from other media. These are new characters.
It's like, the same people that are complaining about this are the same people that like adore the Clone Wars. It's like, the amount of character development that Ahsoka went through as a character is astronomical. You don't start liking her until like midway through season 2, because she's meant to be annoying all throughout first season and start to become a normal person in season 2. But these people,
we hated her.
It's because it's the people that watched through it as a little kid and only have the nostalgia kick, and now go back and watch it because they know the end result. They're just like, they don't mind the development because they know where the end goal is. So then they just sit there, and when something new's happening, they want it to be at the end result so quickly, so they're complaining about character development. But then if it gets to the end result immediately, then they're like, but there's a lack of character development. It's like, make up your dang mind. All they want to do is they want something to complain about, and that's it. That's really it.
It's been an interesting cycle of watching Star Wars content and seeing what fans like and dislike. There's an interesting theory about if The Mandalorian season 2, or just The Mandalorian in general, has, despite it being excellent in my opinion and the best Star Wars content since 1983, the question is it so good that everything else is going to look like absolute shit? Because the Bad Batch, I've heard people, even one of the more popular YouTubers for Star Wars, being like, "Oh, it wasn't good because Darth Vader wasn't in there."
Yeah.
Or I didn't see this person show up. Like Bo-Katan wasn't in it, and I did not like the Bad Batch. I do agree that it kind of didn't focus on the characters in the way I wanted to. I think they absolutely did a disservice to Echo. There was no character progression for him, in my opinion, over 16 episodes, which is sad. But my expectation for the story isn't, oh, I need to have a cameo in it. I need to have this in it to make it good. I don't need a grand, big Luke Skywalker finale at the end of Mandalorian to make something good. And so the theory is that, like, the Mandalorian's so good that everything else is just not going to be comparable to it anymore, and that Star Wars is going to kind of shoot itself in the foot because you make something so great, now the expectations are that we have to have cameos and have to have member berries in order for Star Wars to be good. That's a really bad mentality to have, because the reason Mandalorian was so popular and everyone loved it is because it was a new character. It was in this kind of new timeline we haven't really explored yet, at least in live action, and it also has this marketability of Grogu, and it had that connection for a lot of us. It was the new characters, the new worlds, new everything that made us really love the Mandalorian. So the idea of we have to go back to things that we used to love in order to make the new stuff good, I think is really not a good idea for the fandom to expect from Star Wars, at least going into the future. It's really going to limit us in what we can do.
I just, like, for your, like, one thing on the Bad Batch, like, saying about Echo, I agree with you, like, full-heartedly, because Echo's my favorite member of the Bad Batch. He doesn't have character development in the Bad Batch, but I think that's only because we saw him, like, a good deal of him in the Clone Wars, so I feel like we get his character set up there, and we're already, like, recognized with the character and how he acts and who, like, what he believes. So I feel like the character development for him wasn't as necessary as it was for the rest of the Bad Batch, just because we literally only had them for like 4 episodes before to like see who they were, and we really didn't even get any like thing other than they're like, oh, we have these quirks and we're like super cool clone troopers. So like they had like 0 character development. They were just who they were in the like season 7 arc. So I know what you mean about Echo, but that's just my train of thought is just the fact that because we knew him from previous material, that's why he doesn't have too much screen time or character development in the Bad Batch.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Mm-hmm. So I think with like your point about Mando and like other stuff needing to be as good as Mando, I think that the reason I liked season 2 of Mando with having all of the like cameos and stuff like that, because it had far more like character cameos than season 1 did. Season 1, I think the biggest character cameo would have been like what? I mean, technically Boba Fett, but that was only his feet, but like stormtroopers, you know what I mean? The Darksaber was the biggest character cameo.
True.
But yeah, I think like the reason I liked it was because season 1 was so good at introducing the new characters on their own, that I didn't care that I didn't care about the cameos are carrying the show, because I actually liked the characters that were new. I think that honestly, the cameo thing, it has the potential to kill a show, in my opinion. It like, if you do it too much, if you do it too heavy right off the bat. The thing about the Bad Batch that I liked was every episode did have a character cameo, but it was very minor characters from the Clone Wars, and then we had a couple characters from Rebels that you're now seeing what happened to them when there was this sudden change in government in the galaxy, and what happened to them when everything gets turned on its head. Some people's lives don't change at all, and then some people's lives, they have to pick a side in this conflict that's already arising. And so I think like the Bad Batch does it well, and Mando season 2 did it well, and what I'm hoping doesn't happen is, and we're already seeing it happen in the fandom, people are already saying, like in Kenobi, we're gonna see this character, this character, this character, you know what I mean? They have a whole list of characters, and my worry is that, because I think Kenobi's gonna be fantastic either way, because I'm excited to see, like, I hope it talks more about the Force, and like Obi-Wan's training in the Force, and I hope we learn more about like the more mystical aspects of Star Wars. But I'm also keeping an open mind. I think that the cameo thing gets people, they put blinders on when they're watching these shows, and they're just like, if I don't see this, I need to see, you know, bang, 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 and they have a whole list. And then if they don't see all these characters, then it, for some reason in their mind, equates to the show being bad, which, again, kind of pulls us back to, if my expectations are not met by something that I didn't create, then I'm disappointed in it, which I understand to a point. But at the same time, it's like, you're not in the director's chair. You're not on the writing team. You know, just because a creative decision was made that you wouldn't have made as the viewer, does that mean that the product itself is bad?
I feel like most people want Star Wars to turn out like Family Matters when it was Family Matters, and then Steve Urkel showed up, and then it just became the Steve Urkel show. Because people they just want to see what they want to see, but it's like a comfort zone. People don't like moving out of their comfort zone. People don't like fledging out and trying new things. So if you have like that comfort, like, oh, Captain Rex is in every episode of The Bad Batch, now I'm comfortable because I know this guy and I love this guy. It's like, feel free just to expand it. No new characters. Just because when you try something new, you get new characters, then you like expand the universe and you end up loving it more. But then most people are just like, nope, I like what I like and I don't want to try anything new because if it's new, it's bad.
Yeah, the expectations can really shoot the disappointment high up with people. I mean, if you expect, I think it's one of the problems that people had with the prequels is that they expected to be like the original trilogy, and the idea was, all right, have you grown out of Star Wars, or have you forgotten why you fell in love with Star Wars when you were a kid? Because all of us, we grew up with the prequels, I imagine, so that's the Star Wars that we were introduced to, and likely the Star Wars that we fell in love with. And so for original trilogy fans to expect the same thing of the original trilogy with the prequel trilogy, it's kind of an unfair standard to put on it. Even Lucas said leading up to those movies that people are expecting like the second coming of Jesus Christ, and there's no way to meet those expectations. Fans have very big expectations from Star Wars, and it's okay to have that because they can be met, and sometimes they can even be exceeded. But the real problem is that sometimes they're just unrealistic. You know, like the people are saying, "Oh, we got to retcon the sequel trilogy." It's like, okay, well then replace it with what? Right? Like, what are you going to do? Bring Carrie Fisher back to life? That's gone. Like, she's in Ford. Like, Harrison Ford's not coming back. Mark Hamill couldn't give less of a fuck. Like, there's so many things that you just can't do anymore. And for people expecting it to be exactly like they want it in their mind, it's like you're just always going to be disappointed. Like, you will never be happy with Star Wars or anything, for that matter.
I totally agree, because, I mean, especially going on, like, what Tom was saying about the Kenobi show, I'm already seeing, like, rumor reports, I should say, of characters that will be in Kenobi. I'm putting in quotations because it's sources that I'm not going to confirm as legitimate. But I remember...
You don't know, dude, trust me?
Shut up. But I know someone was saying, like, so-and-so actor was casted to be, like, the child version of Leia, and then so-and-so is supposed to be an Inquisitor. So then I feel like when people are putting that stuff out, that's only making it worse for some people, because now they're like, well, if there's no Inquisitor in the show, then I'm not really gonna like it. It's like, bro, the only thing that I care about is that it's Ewan McGregor, and then Hayden. What makes me even more happy, and in my opinion it's a bonus point, is that Hayden Christensen is both Anakin and Vader. That's all that I care about. It could literally be those two characters, and I would not care about anything else, just because I want to see Obi-Wan again, because of my love for the prequels.
That's the main reason I want to see him, is that just he was great in the prequels, and also it's Ewan McGregor.
Exactly.
And I also think when you brought up the Mark Hamill comment, did you watch the Star Wars Gallery episode, the most recent one?
No, of course.
Okay, so I when they were talking about Mark Hamill, like, his reaction, like, he had to read the script first. He didn't just come out and say, yep, I'll be Luke Skywalker again, like, 100%. I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't think about it until, like, just now, but I was like, that's probably, like, what you said is very true. Like, they really had to convince him, you know, through the script and through the costume and you know, and through the Grogu puppet to really want him to come back to the show.
Yeah.
And I think it's, these actors, the other part of it is, some of these actors just want to be done with Star Wars. Harrison Ford is the most blatant example of just wanting to be done with Star Wars. He's literally wanted to be dead since Empire Strikes Back. And so, like, I think you have to realize some of these characters need let go. Mm-hmm. And not in the form of the character, in the form of the actor. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know about you, but I loved Alden Ehrenreich's portrayal of Han Solo in Solo: Star Wars Story. I thought he wasn't trying to play Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. He was just playing the character of Han Solo. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what made me like his acting so much, is because he wasn't trying to impersonate an actor. He was just being the character.
Mm-hmm. I personally think Harrison Ford is very ungrateful for Star Wars due to the fact that he was literally a carpenter working on a door in George Lucas's office, and he was just like, you want to come like read some lines with some actors? And he was just like, okay, I got nothing else to do. And then he's like, oops, I now have billions of dollars because I read some lines in a casting room while I was fixing a door. And I was just like, I hate it so much. I hate this thing that gave me all the money and opportunity in the world. I personally think he's a bit ungrateful for that.
But that's Harrison Ford slander on the 1313.
Hey, he was my childhood hero, and I wrote him some fan mail to Indiana Jones, and he didn't respond, but he responded to my friend Gabriel, so I will forever have beef with Harrison Ford.
It's alright. I know a guy who, I think he did, like, plumbing for Harrison Ford one day. He said he went to his house, and, like, it, of course, was extremely nice, and this was, like, back when I think, like, guys having earrings on, like, one ear was a thing, yes. And he said Harrison was cool, so... Don't meet your heroes, but if you can be a plumber for them, I guess that's a good way to go about it.
Exactly, because it's like, I remember specifically like my dad talking about, because he grew up with the OT, going to see it in the theaters and such. He told me that like at his time, like all the main actors like Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher didn't necessarily like the fact that they were so popular because of Star Wars, and they wanted to take a step back from it, because it was all like, the thing that Jacob was referring to with the letter especially was, like in 3rd grade we had a project that we had to like write a letter to a celebrity, but it was also to teach us how to write a letter and be a functioning member of society. So like, yeah, I wrote to the entire OT cast, plus Jeremy Bulloch, who played Boba Fett, and nobody like ever responded to me. But then like a year later, I got a letter back in the mail from Jeremy Bulloch, like, apologizing for being so late, but he wrote it, like, on a sticky note, like, hand wrote it, and then, like, sent me, like, a card of himself and, like, signed it. So, like, that's why, like, he holds such a special place in my heart, like, now as, like, my favorite, like, actor for the OT. Like, yeah, it isn't the Tamir Morrison Boba Fett, it's just the dude in the suit, and he doesn't really do a whole lot, but it's, like, he made the time of day to like do that, because he was all like, I really loved working on Star Wars, it was such a privilege, and everybody was so nice to me and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those interactions can kind of vary a lot, and like you can have a good interaction with someone or bad, but it was really impactful on the fans. Like that's one of the things that I try to caution people with, like if you meet a celebrity or anything like that, or you meet someone you're a huge fan of, if you treat them like a normal person, they're normally going to have a great interaction with you. Some people kind of fan out, and they kind of get a little bit too weird sometimes, which is natural with someone you're a big fan of, but that can really make the other person uncomfortable. And so anytime I've met like a Star Wars actor or someone with some kind of fame and popularity, I've noticed that the more like down to earth you are with them, the better the interaction is, and it really makes you appreciate them as a person and their influence in Star Wars a lot more than you would have if you had never met that person or never even talked to them before. One of my best examples is John Fast Morton. He is the guy who plays Dak in Empire Strikes Back, the guy in the back seat with Luke Skywalker on the snowspeeder, and he's like, I feel like I can take on the whole Empire by myself. Well, I had dinner with him one night, and now anytime I see that character, Dak, I'm like, oh, that's him, that's John. Like, John's a great guy, and it makes me appreciate those films a lot more. And even with who was it? I think he played Boba Fett for like 1 or 2 scenes as well in the original trilogy. So there's moments like that where, kind of like with Jeremy Bulloch, you're like, you know what, I kind of know that person now on a little bit more of a personal level, and actually had an interaction with them, and that makes it that more real, and it makes it that more magical to watch these movies.
There is, that is exactly how it goes. You know, when I saw the episode of Mando season 2 that had Ahsoka in it, I was so impressed with Rosario's portrayal of Ahsoka that I just like put out a tweet on Twitter, and I was like, I tagged her in it, and I just said like, thank you for taking one of my favorite childhood characters and like making her like, you know, so faithful, you know, doing the character so faithfully, and I was really impressed, and I honestly like didn't know what to expect going into it, but I was nothing but impressed. And then she like retweeted my tweet, and I was freaking out. I sent it to like all my group chats. I sent it to my dad. I sent it to like everyone I knew, and I was like, oh my god, like she recognized me as a human being. But like that was a situation where I could be like behind the screen doing that. But at the same time, like, you never expect on social media, because there's hundreds and thousands of people just DMing all these actors, and, you know, every single day in and out, just like tagging them in tweets. Like, I can only imagine how many tweets Mark Hamill gets tagged in a day. Like, it's insane. Whenever I'm on Twitter and I'm scrolling through, which I do try to stay off Star Wars Twitter, because for the most part, it is incredibly toxic. But you know, when I am on, there's tons of people tagging Mark Hamill in everything.
Yeah,
most of my feed is people trying to get Mark Hamill's attention, and it makes you, like, if you see it that often, it makes you wonder how often he sees it. Sometimes fame can be a really big curse.
If you really want to get Mark Hamill's attention, you gotta post things that don't politically align with him. He tweets politics a lot, and that's just a fact.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, he's been very vocal about it. Probably since we were all not teens, but like preteens, maybe even before. Pretty much since social media has been a thing, and it's curious that Star Wars fans are very forgiving towards him for doing that, as opposed to someone like Gina Carano, who was a lesser character but felt more modern with the times of her little political stunt that she went through with, I think it was last year.
Yeah, that's crazy to think that that's a year ago now. I just, my heart breaks for that situation with Gina Carano, because, you know, in my opinion, like, people can make all the arguments of like, oh, well, you know, she was only a minor character, you could write her off, or you could recast her and stuff like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, shouldn't we be able to separate our feelings about the actor and the character itself? You know, and like I don't think her acting is like, I don't think she's a Leonardo DiCaprio of acting, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think she's that good, but at the same time, it's like, that's her as the character, so why are you stripping that from her just because she said some things you didn't like? I mean, you know, Pedro Pascal says things that I don't like, but I still love Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin in The Mandalorian, because I can separate the character from the actor. You know, I don't like everything that Mark Hamill says, but I love Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. So like, that's just how it is. Like, at the end of the day, I can just forget about it. It's not that real to me. But for some people, evidently, for some people, it is that real. You know.
I don't care much.
Yeah, I think that as time goes on, we'll probably hopefully get better about that. I like Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin. It's curious to see his political commentary like slowly fade away as he's taken on more responsibility in Star Wars, it seems.
Yeah.
And I think someone who does this pretty much better than anybody is Jon Favreau. He really seems to find a way to disengage himself entirely from anything remotely controversial. Like, I have no idea what his political views are, and that's completely fine. I don't really care to, whether he agrees with me or not. But it's kind of interesting that you already can see that. You're kind of like, I don't really know what he aligns with. And you can even say the same for someone like George Lucas, and he's definitely someone who's more on the Democrat aisle in terms of U.S. politics. But he's not very controversial about it. He doesn't do it in a way where a lot of people will take issue with it, which is kind of funny, because a lot of people in today's Star Wars community, there are a lot of people who don't really like the SJW aspect of whatever they think is happening, which is their prerogative. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but the values that they seem to dislike are ironically the same things that George Lucas advocates for in a lot of ways, but they never seem to say anything about that. So it is weird how we have aligned ourselves in politics with Star Wars and have made it kind of a culture thing now, where it's you have Star Wars and that ideology also lines up with your political ideology, and we can't separate the two. And I have no idea why. I think that's one of the weirdest things that we're going to have going forward.
Sorry, you can go.
All right. I totally feel like this kind of relates back to your point earlier with obviously like don't hold like your heroes to like such like a high standard and stuff, because I feel like that also becomes an issue, because I don't know why, but now I feel like in this day and age, like if you have this person that you consider to be like so great and whatever, and you hold them to that high standard, then suddenly you're all like, well, what's your opinion on politics, or what's your opinion on a political issue, where it's like they're like a content creator, you know, like that isn't their job, is to tell you like how to live your life and stuff. And that's exactly what we're gonna do with the show, is give you Star Wars content. We're not gonna give you a political opinion, because that's not the show. We're a show about Star Wars, you know what I mean? But then I feel like that same reality is happening, obviously, as like a fan might find out like the political like alliance of their actor. They're like, suddenly I cannot like this person because they're telling other people how to live their lives and all this other stuff. But again, I just do not care at the end of the day, because it's like, sure, some people say some stuff that I really do not like, but at the end of the day, they're playing a character on a screen that I'm watching, and when they play the character on the screen, they're not who that physical person is. You know what I mean? Cara Dune is not Gina Carano. You know what I mean? Like, those two people are two completely different entities, in my opinion.
And then, like, Han Solo is not Harrison Ford.
Exactly.
Han Solo is whoever plays Han Solo. That's like kind of like I said earlier with Alden Ehrenreich. They both played Han Solo. You know, you've got different actors that play different characters throughout the saga. Like Ewan McGregor and Sir Alec Guinness both played the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Obi-Wan Kenobi is Ewan McGregor or Obi-Wan Kenobi is Sir Alec Guinness. You know, there needs to be a separation. And when we talk about like the heroes, you know, we want people that we admire to be this perfect image that we've created in our heads.
Yeah.
So when they don't reach those standards, it kind of goes back to the disappointment thing. Like we find ourselves to be disappointed by that. And then for some reason that gets us like mad. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can be like, you know, oh man, that sucks. Like, I really hoped they would have had this opinion about this. But people just go like off the deep end. They'll just be like, that's it. You suck and blah, blah, blah. I can't believe I loved you as a child. Da, da, da. And it's just like, okay, moving on. You know, some of us have lives and, you know, we work jobs and go to school. So, oh my god, I almost but we like don't have like us three, we don't have the time of day to like sit and debate about the political views of Star Wars actors. We just love Star Wars. We love enjoying it.
The only actor character which I think is completely meshed and I don't think they can ever really do again is Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther. That is the only like connection where I'm just like, I don't think it would be the same. Like, I just don't think so. But that's just a personal opinion. But then when it comes to politics, I feel like, just shut up and you mind your own business. That's really what I think. It's like, some people are going to think differently than you, and that is okay.
There's a podcast, it's called, my father watches it, it's called Rebel Force Radio. And one of their mottos is, and I watch their stuff from time to time too, but one of their mottos is, shut up and make Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a good mentality to have. It kind of disengages you from any controversy with anything. I've made the mistake of trying to be as open about myself in terms of political views. I've always said, like, I'm a kind of a right-leaning conservative libertarian mindset, and I always said, like, jokingly growing up that I was an 80s conservative. And then I had people, like, coming at me on Twitter who were Republican or conservative and big Trump supporters, and they were like, oh, StarWarsOnly said he didn't vote for Trump in the last election, so, you know, can we really trust him about being conservative? I'm like, dude, like, that's my mistake of even telling you guys this stuff, because the channel's called StarWarsOnly. I should have stuck to that. I would use it broadly to mention that, like, just because I agree with certain people politically in the Star Wars fandom, doesn't mean I agree with their mentality towards Star Wars. Like, if you're anti-SJW and anti-liberal stuff, it's like, okay, I'll hear you out. But then when you say everything's SJW and everything is liberal, then it's like, okay, you're losing me here. That's not what this is about. And so it is weird how people are even attaching themselves to creators and people as small as you guys and I, that it's like we are supposed to have opinion that shares with everybody. And so the shut up and make Star Wars comment is great, because that's what you should be doing. It's enjoy the things that you want to enjoy. Use Star Wars as a way to get out of the modern day real world life struggles that we have, instead of trying to bring it back to the modern day life struggles that we have with politics and whatever's going on in the world. I mean, the world's a crazy place, so it's kind of nice to get away with it in Star Wars.
I agree.
Star Wars is like easily like it's my favorite thing. I mean, you can see behind us, this is their collection.
Yeah.
But my room at my apartment is the same way. Like, it's the entire room is Star Wars. I've got the Hasbro Mandalorian helmet on a helmet stand on my dresser. I've got the new Lego UCS gunship sitting on, on the other side of the dresser. I've got like, what is it, around like 100 Black Series figures just from all different Star Wars media, just like all on, displayed. It's just, Star Wars is my favorite thing, and that's what made us want to do this podcast at the end of the day. We aren't here to, come out and say something controversial. We're not here to, come out and do clickbait and, have like the thing we talk about for 10 seconds be the thing we make our title about because we know it's going to get, the most clicks. We are here because we want to make Star Wars content and share with other people the conversations that we would have over Xbox parties between the three of us while we were playing Minecraft. You know what I mean? Like, that's just where we're at with it. And to see the community that we've built upon it is amazing, and far more than what we ever could have imagined. We had agreed that if we got no views,
we would still do it.
We would still do it every week because we love to do it. And that's what I love about your content, is you just present the information and you just talk Star Wars. And you can tell that you really enjoy Star Wars. And, like you said, like, you enjoy what you love about Star Wars. Like, the original trilogy, The Mandalorian. Like, you love what you love about Star Wars, and you just make the content about it. And there doesn't need to be all this drama and all this extra stuff going on for your content to be good. And that's the other thing, is like the opinion pieces that you've made are awesome as well. I think they're amazing. And so that's just kind of where I'm at with that.
I greatly appreciate it. I find it easy to enjoy what you want to enjoy about Star Wars, while also politely critiquing the things that you dislike. I was a lot more cool. Probably after The Last Jedi, I was a lot more negative, and I don't want to say honest about my opinions, but I felt like I had a lot more to say at the time. And what I liked about it is, at the time, there was a lot of really big YouTubers in Star Wars, and I don't want to name names because I don't know if they'd even want me to, but a lot of them would reach out and be like, hey, I really appreciate your honesty about it. And that made me feel good, but at the same time, it felt bad, because it's like, okay, I'm glad you guys appreciate my honesty, but I want everyone to be honest about stuff. It seems like nowadays there's a lot of Star Wars channels who kind of go with the wind. If there's something that everyone unanimously dislikes, they dislike it. If there's something that everyone unanimously loves, they go with it. There are people who come out and they're like, oh, I love The Last Jedi, I love The Rise of Skywalker. Well, as soon as the internet doesn't like it, they're like, okay, I don't like these movies at all. The sequels aren't canon. And it's like, okay, well, now you're not genuine. You gotta, if you're going to be genuine about it, I'll listen to your opinion and respect that you like the stuff, but other people don't. It's okay to disagree on liking things, and that's what's really weird about the community now. It's like, you either like the stuff I like, or we're not friends, and you are the enemy now in this chaos of the fandom. And it really only seems like one side is believing this now. It used to be like, okay, yeah, there's some pushback, but now it really seems like people are almost making themselves the victims in a way. They're like, oh, Lucasfilm and all the Star Wars fans are against us. It's like, no one's against you, like, at all. I mean, you guys all like the sequels. I can't stand them. I don't like rewatching them, but it doesn't mean I don't like you guys. There's no point in that. Like, your Star Wars opinion isn't who you are as a person.
Yes.
That's where the distinction has people can't do that anymore. It's weird.
Unless you like Resistance, then that is you. No.
I don't even think I've ever seen Resistance.
I don't recommend it.
So,
I don't recommend it.
here's where I'm at with that show. Because if I had to pick out like a couple things I like, Commander Pyre is an awesome character. He looks dope. He's the gold First Order Stormtrooper, the gold and black. That's another Dave Filoni show. Dave Filoni did that show. The other thing is that the show is literally made for 6 to 8 year olds. It is not made for an audience above the age of 10, in my opinion. I watched through it. It was like around Christmas time last year, and I was bored. So I committed to, over a week's time, watching both seasons of Resistance. And I can tell you from experience, there were episodes, not like moments in an episode, but entire episodes where I would just be gripping the bottom of my chair, praying to God that the episode would just end. But, you know, I got through it, and I'm glad that I've watched it, because now I can have conversations about it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, but you don't need to watch it. You really don't need to watch it.
I've tried to, and I failed. The only positive thing I could say about that show is the art style is really cool.
It's unique.
I really like that art style. But other than that...
I will 110% take your word for it. I haven't seen the Star Wars Holiday Special yet, because it's been considered like, yeah, it's bad, but it's not so bad that it's good. It's just really, really bad.
Like the OG one?
Yeah, the one from 78.
Yeah, don't watch that. That one's bad.
You haven't seen it, you said?
What?
No, I haven't. I've tried to avoid it. It's you know, kind of a part of a unique time of history, and I probably should watch it just to be the die-hard of Star Wars fan that I am, but man, that just looks rough.
You are not... You're literally not missing anything. I physically cannot sit through it in one sitting. I've tried multiple times to watch it in one sitting. I cannot bring myself to do it. Like, I'll literally be in the first 15 minutes and I'll be like, oh, sweet Lord. You know, I think I forgot to walk the iron. I think I'm going to go do that now.
It's a fun drinking game for all you kids over 21. Take a shot every time you want to punch yourself in the teeth while watching the Star Wars Christmas.
Good way to get drunk and not remember.
Yep. You're just like
watching it.
You're like 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds.
At least in my opinion, for this year, the Lego Christmas special that they did was really good, because I say that from the perspective of, I really liked the Lego Yoda Chronicles that they had on Cartoon Network. And Lego isn't supposed to be serious. It's supposed to be silly and goofy and stupid, and that's exactly what it was in my opinion. You know what I mean? Stupid in a way that it's like, I can enjoy that and have fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the Lego special that came out recently, and it was good. I'm excited to see what the next one is, and it's kind of like the it's easy Star Wars. Like, it's easy to like, and it's also easy for anyone to watch. You can have it in the background and just kind of enjoy it, and not take it too seriously. And that's kind of a route I think Star Wars will be trying to go for in the short-term future. Like, I think we'll see that with something like Star Wars Visions, where it's easy, it's creative, but it's also unique enough that not a broad audience of Star Wars fans are going to watch it, but, you know, if you want to watch it, you can, and it's content to fill the gap.
Because now, here's my question for you specifically, because I have seen a lot of huge negativity, I should say, on TikTok and other forms of social media from people who are, like, really rooted, I guess, like, with the OT and even the prequel era as well, saying that, like, Star Wars anime is stupid, and now we're going to have all of these weeaboos come to Star Wars. So, I mean, like, what are your kind of, like, thoughts on Visions? Like, here in the show, like, we are very much excited for it. I'm an avid anime watcher when I have the time for it.
We are all anime watchers here.
But what are your thoughts on it? You think it's something you're going to enjoy?
Enjoy? I hope so. I think it certainly looks very good. I think it's weird that people don't like the idea of Star Wars being anime, because George Lucas was someone who pitched Star Wars being anime. I mean, that's what the 2003 microseries was about, is that he likes anime, and he took inspiration from Japanese culture, of course, Kurosawa, for the Star Wars movies. So it's very weird it's almost like not knowing your history in a way, of being like, oh, I don't appreciate Japanese in my Star Wars, and it's like, okay, well, Star Wars has always had Japanese roots. It's been in multiple cultures. Personally, I'm not a huge anime fan. I have a good experience with anime. I grew up reading the Naruto mangas, and as the Shippuden show came out and all that stuff, as it started to grow, I remember reading it from start to finish, like the manga, and then I remember when they ended the series, like they did the whole war arc, and then you know, the end is the end, I guess, for that one, and it was right before they went to Boruto, and so I remember reading that and being like, wow, like that was the end of a really big chapter of my childhood. I mean, me and Naruto I mean, Naruto's like Star Wars for me. It's been there since my childhood, and I absolutely love the series. I don't love it as much anymore, but when I loved Naruto, it was during a time that anime was really, really nerdy. Like, if you liked anime, it wasn't that you were just a weeb. It was like, dude, no one even watches that anymore. And it's annoying as fuck for me to see the past, like, 7 to 8 years of everyone loving anime now. And, like, that's the cool thing. It's like, oh, you're an anime man? Yeah, me too, man. Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia. I'm like, damn, dude, like, where were you guys when I was a kid? Like, this is really annoying. I can't watch anime anymore. I've had the same problem with it since I've had in high school with it, which was it is extremely addicting in a bad way. Where
Yes.
you watch one episode and you just can't stop. And it's the music, it's the style of the art, it's the storytelling, it's always over the top and ridiculous. And that's really good. And it's the fact that a lot of them can keep the story engaging and people engaged like they have, I love that. I just can't do it anymore. I don't have time, because if I do that, I will lose myself and go back to my childhood, and I just can't do that. And so when I see Star Wars Visions, I don't think of it that way, because it is Star Wars mixing with anime, and so it's right up my alley on what I'm always going to dedicate time to. And the fact that it's mixing these two worlds that have always been a big part of my childhood together is really intriguing and fascinating, and I really hope they do a good job with it. And I would argue that I think that people will have episodes they really like and are very well regarded as time goes on.
Yep.
And I think it will grow in popularity to the point that it might have a season 2. But I do think when it initially launches this coming month in September, it'll be kind of like a dud in the water. I don't think people are going to give it much notice until years later, and they're going to look back and be like, man, whatever happened to Visions? That was such a good idea. And then maybe they'll continue with it. But I do see fans not liking this as much as some of us will, but I do see it aging like a fine wine, kind of like Clone Wars did, and kind of like Rebels did a little bit, but I think it's going to age better than Rebels.
Yeah, I think Rebels definitely has its core community. I'm one of those people who didn't like Rebels when it came out, and then I came around to Rebels, and now it's like way up there for me. I think I definitely agree with you. I think people have been sleeping on Visions since the announcement. You know, people have been sleeping on Visions, and we have been saying since day one, do not sleep on Visions, because it's going to be really good, and I think there are going to be some really powerful messages. They have like some of the top anime studios in Japan working on these episodes, and so I think that we're going to get some awesome, deep philosophical messaging. I think that we're going to see some really, really cool visuals. That's just a given. But we're all really excited for the show. And I think that it's... when Star Wars does new and just really unexpected things like that, that's what I like most about Star Wars.
Exactly.
We talk about it all the time. Like, that's why we like Rebels. You know, stuff like the Purgils and like the Loth Wolves and the World Between Worlds. It's so different and so out of there. And like, I think one of my favorite arcs in the Clone Wars is the one with Meever Gascon, and the droids are having an existential crisis on that planet where they meet Gregor. That's just, it's so weird and so like almost dumb that like I'm like, that is awesome. Like, it's just so different for Star Wars, and it's so not Star Wars that I like the weird stuff like that.
I don't think people are like...
Lucas loves that episode too.
He loves that episode.
I don't think people are giving like, especially like within the anime community, they're giving like Visions like the attention that it really deserves. Like the studios that worked on it, like Trigger is working on it. Trigger made Kill La Kill. Like,
which I love.
It's a fantastic show. I'm like, why aren't more people talking about this? So yeah, it's gonna have a really slow start. Like, core fans like us that like anime and like Star Wars are going to just eat it up like right at the beginning. And then, I feel like everybody's gonna catch on within like a year or two, and then they're gonna be like, oh, this is cool, and maybe like 4 years. But yeah, I'm very, very excited for Visions.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious on what Lucasfilm Animation's future is. I've heard things about like a High Republic show possibly being like in the works for the future, but other than that, I really don't know where they're going to go. And so I think something like Visions, something like a High Republic show, like all of that can be a possible future for Lucasfilm Animation and how they'll continue that side of the Star Wars storytelling, because I think that's a big part. I mean, Clone Wars really carried Star Wars for quite a while, and I would argue that if we didn't have Clone Wars, the prequels would not be as revered as they are now. People would not love them as much as they do now, and Clone Wars is a big way of keeping that fandom alive. And so I think animation may serve that in the near future, whether it be Visions, whether it be Bad Batch, you name it. It could be any of these Lucasfilm animation shows coming up. It's just interesting to think of what they haven't shown us yet.
And I totally agree. The biggest thing I've been saying for a long while is we need new High Republic material besides a book. Because I'm going to be honest, I haven't read the High Republic books because I don't have the time. Jacob has the one High Republic book, and he has 2, and he's read through the 1. But it's like I just don't have time to like sit down and read the book at the moment. I mean, I just started back school, but it's like I would really like to see it in other media, just because I'm afraid that if Star Wars continues to do High Republic only in like comic book and book media form, even though it's supposed to be an essential part of the story now with the new direction that they're taking it, I feel like people aren't going to not only not understand the characters, and they're not even just going to be interested, in my opinion, because then they're going to be like, oh, I need to read all these books to understand the whole new like direction Star Wars is going. I'm not going to do that.
I mean, but that's what you had to do if you wanted to experience episodes 7, 8, and 9 back in the day. You had to read the Timothy Zahn books. So
did you
but
really
that
see
was due to limitations of the time.
Right.
I think you make a fair point that like I love the High Republic. I've read, what is it? I've read the first one, Light of the Jedi. I read the one that's kind of after that, in between the other one, Into the Dark, that he just showed, and I didn't really like it as much, but I really liked Light of the Jedi. And then the most recent one was The Rising Storm, I think. One of the best Star Wars stories ever, but very underrated because no one knows about it because it's in the books. And right now I'm listening to what's it called, Tempest Runner. And it's like an audio only version of Star Wars, like Audible and all that stuff, and like voice actors doing it, and it's okay so far, but it's stuff like that where I'm like, this is such a small and niche audience in Star Wars that even pays attention to this kind of stuff. I mean, you have to be not only extremely diehard, like you really have to invest in these books if you want to actually care about it. And it is kind of a disservice to the High Republic because I think it's one of the most interesting and unique eras that we've ever had in Star Wars, and it's, in my opinion, the Jedi as they should be. It's the Jedi being peacekeepers. It's the Jedi being the police of the galaxy. And everyone's dismissed this entire era because the first narrative was that it's SJW, despite I have literally no idea what's SJW about. Like, not a fucking clue. And also the fact that it's in books. It's like, well, I don't even like reading books half the time. I'm someone who likes reading books on economics, on politics, on history, and stuff like that. And then I'll do a Star Wars book from time to time. But it's also hard to get invested in that if you don't see it take shape throughout the actual story. Like, you don't see it in Lucasfilm animation, you don't see it in a show or even live action, or them even hint towards the High Republic. So it's like appeasing to a small group of fans inside of an even smaller group of fans. And it's just a very weird mentality that Lucasfilm has. So I do think if they want to bring in a new era and be a lot more bold, they have to let the High Republic go beyond the books. And I think they will. There's talks about a video game being set in the High Republic. There's a show that's supposed to be on the High Republic. It's working its way up there. But I feel like by the time it gets to that point, some of the people like myself who've been reading about it maybe burnt out on the High Republic, and the other people will have already been dismissing it for 4 or 5 years, and they're going to be like, oh, well, it's a show now. It's because the book sucks so much no one bought it, and so I'm not going to watch the show.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, especially with with the SJW and diversity stuff as well, it's like, bro, it is space. People can look however they want, and guess what? There's aliens, and they don't look like people. It's like, bro, I do not care. Because, again, yeah, that is my biggest point. Star Wars is so big that we don't even know anything about. I mean, sure, I feel like we've scratched the surface of the lore and such, but there's so many things we still don't know, and people are just so quick to judge and so quick to say things that'll get them likes and views.
So there's also a difference between having, also look at the authors, okay?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the author is black and they're having their protagonist be black? What a surprise. Like people act like it's like this out of the blue thing, or they act like the reason is always because Lucasfilm is trying to push, diversity in the SJW agenda, and it's like, that's not I mean, yeah, there are some times where I'm like, it's kind of pushing it, but like 99% of the time, it's like, not really. I think there's a lot of overreaction.
We do not care.
That's our famous line is I don't know if how big you're into football, but that's the meme that was made out of Mike Tomlin's statement, the coach for the Steelers, when he goes, "We do not care."
We do not care.
Yeah, no, I understand that not caring, and that's what's interesting about the High Republic is that they're like, oh, it's SJW because of the diversity. And it's like, how? Like how is that SJW? Like you were saying, it's in space, which is fine, and if there's no political ideology behind it, then it's like, okay, well, are you telling me that anything that doesn't have like just white guys or whatever you expect from it, is that now SJW? It's like everything can be SJW now. Like if a new film comes out and there's a black lead and they're like, oh, well, they put him as a black lead because he's black, and it's like, okay, well, now you're making it about race when it was just like, hey, I'm just trying to tell a story and the character happens to be black. Like,
Exactly.
It shouldn't be a talking point on the person's race, and mainly when it comes to something like Star Wars and the High Republic, it's like, it's a new series, it's a new era, it's kind of everything a lot of people have been asking for, and you're going to literally judge a book by its cover and see different aliens, different colors, and different people and go, I no longer like that because, well, I judged it on the race of these people. And it's like, okay, well, how is that not fucking right? Like, I'm so confused. Like, you're telling me you're not going to read this book because it's got a couple people on it who have different identities. Like, there's even the one that came out about the comic book of two Jedi being like non-binary or something like that. And they're like, that's SJW nonsense. I'm like, okay, maybe if they were human, I would agree with you, and I'd be like, okay, like that's clearly like a commentary on time. But if they're aliens, it's like, well, no fucking shit, they're not. Like, who cares? Like, it's Star Wars. Are you going to be upset because midgets and small people are not it's Yoda or something like that? Like, you don't make that correlation in the real world. So why are you doing it with this? It's a very weird mentality people have formed in the Star Wars fandom, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but I pray we do.
I feel like, because I really like Omega from the Bad Batch, that was the biggest thing too, is that people were like saying like, if Omega from the Bad Batch is like non-binary, like I'm not gonna watch. I'm like, bro, it is made in a lab. It can be whatever it is because the designers made it that way. It is not natural. Nothing about Omega is natural.
Also, it's a cartoon. Who cares?
Not only that, they say like, oh, I don't care about a person's sexuality or what's in their pants. And it's like, well, then why do you give a fuck what's in Omega's pants? Like, that's so weird to me. Like you're the one bringing this up. I saw Omega and I was like, I don't know if that's a boy or girl. And then they said it's a girl. I'm like, okay, all right, it's a girl. Like, I'll take your word for it. It doesn't make me go, okay, well, is this a trans female? Is this a trans male? Like, if you inherently make it political, the only person you should be upset with is yourself, because you made yourself upset for no reason at all. Like, if you look at something like Omega and like, oh, I don't like her because, oh, she might be transgender. It's like, okay, well, might be and being are completely different things. And it also, like you said, it doesn't matter what a person's race is. It doesn't matter what their sexuality is. But then for some reason you make it matter when these people show up and they're not the way you want them to be. It's like, okay, not everybody can identify the way you want them to identify as.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's a good... all this commentary about the Star Wars fandom that we're having is a good representation of how social media has made everything so political. Like, we are so focused on politics nowadays. I was just talking to Jackson the other day at college, because we both go to the same college. And we were talking, and we were like, I was saying to him, dude, like, think about how political everybody is. And it's mostly young people. Like, I know old people, those are old people stuck in their ways. But, young people, they pick, here you go, pick your team. And it's like, then you just are ride or die for that team, and you'll die on that hill no matter what. Like, you go on dating apps, and there will be girls who are like, if you voted for this person, just swipe left. And it's like, okay, you don't know anything about who I am as a person, but... moving on. And then you go on to like social media, and everything, absolutely everything has to do with politics. And I think that it is just I think that social media has opened that door. And I'm not saying social media is inherently bad. I took a class my freshman year of college on it was called Philosophy and Social Media, and it was a really good course. It talked about how you can go down the rabbit hole of politics and get stuck on one side. And, you know, we talked about, it was called a filter bubble. And this is part of the algorithm of social media. And TikTok, for example, has a very strong filter bubble. If you watch even like a couple seconds of one kind of video that's not like what you usually watch, TikTok will start putting in a ton of other videos that are similar to that one that you watched. And it'll take days for you to get back to your normal what you like. And because that's just how the algorithm is for social media platforms, is they see what you like and they see what you dislike, and to get you to use their platform more, they want to give you almost exclusively things that you like and things that you look at the most, and then they start taking away things that you don't look at that much or things that you express that you don't like. And so you can really easily get stuck in these, like, and it's the same thing with the Star Wars fandom. You've got people on both sides of this spectrum. People that are like militant against the sequels and being anti-SJW, and then there are people who are like militant about being for the sequels and against the prequels, you know, trying to fight each other. And it's just, they're team building. And then you sit here and like, I'm a dude who loves the sequels, loves the prequels, and I'm like, I guess I just don't fit in a box. And it's also like good commentary on humans in general. Like, it's our natural instinct to want to put things in boxes and to want to, you know, just have a category for everything, because it makes things easier in our brain, because we're organizers. That's how we operate. We like to monkey put green banana in one pile and yellow banana in another pile. But like, it's so frustrating, because people stop thinking for themselves and they stop having, like you said, they stop having their own honest opinion, and instead they pick whatever they believe to be the popular opinion, or whatever opinion they believe fits with what their team's agenda is. And so it just makes it a really difficult conversation. I feel like really the only way we'll get out of it as a society is just like either just total collapse of social media, like it just gets so bad that like people just stop using social media because it's only toxic, which I think that's not as likely as the other one, which is we start to phase out of it as we mature. Like for me, when I was like 16 and 17, I was on that train of just, The Last Jedi sucks and the sequels suck and it ruined my childhood, blah, blah, blah. And then as I got older, I started to form my own opinions, and I started to think for myself more and think independently and do my own research on topics rather than just take everybody else's word for it. So,
and I think... you can go.
I'm letting you go. Go ahead. Bye.
Okay. I was just going to say something stupid. I was just going to say that I think like probably one of the most like stark, not ideas, but examples of how people our age like to choose teams. It's when Pokemon Go came out.
Facts.
And everybody was like,
Team Yellow, baby.
You're like you're Mystic or your Instinct or your Valor, and kids were having borderline gang wars over this. It was like it was so extreme for like no reason, and I think that it just shows like how like we've just kind of been raised to like you're on a team, you stick with your team, you die for your team. And that's how now, like, those kids have grown up, and now they're like, politics are just like Pokemon Go teams.
And then y'all betrayed my team, bro.
Jeez, I had no idea that was even a thing. I completely avoided the Pokemon Go craze.
Really?
But
I still play it to this day.
that even that had rivalries and groups hating on groups.
Oh yeah. The slander was bad.
The slander was, you'd walk around school.
Oh, yeah.
What team are you? Oh, you're Instinct. Loser!
Jeez.
It was like that.
Your Team Blue? Bandwagon!
If Star Wars was high school, if all of us fans were put into high school, it would definitely end up like that, where you have, a hallway for the sequel fans, a hallway for the prequel fans. I guess the teacher's room would be the original trilogy fans, because
probably
even
and
remember
be a
it
special ed table for the Resistance fans.
Oh God,
bro, chill with the Resistance slander.
I'm sorry, that's like the one thing I slander in Star Wars. It really is.
That's fair. It's all shit in my opinion. I love it all, but it's all shit. That's what I can thankfully say. I do think that we tend to put ourselves in groups with the Star Wars community, and I've seen it a lot with some content creators where they almost become talking points, where if a content creator says this about Star Wars, then all of their followers believe the same thing. It's one of the things that I do my damnedest to not have on my channel. Of I never want to project my opinions as not only fact, but as something that I guess should be repeated in a way, and not as do as I say, not as I do, or say exactly what I'm saying. But it's just kind of weird to see when you go. For me, I had an experience like this where I went to a work in the past year, and I was talking to one of the guys who worked there about Lucasfilm, and he was like, yeah, I think it's doing okay, but I really wish Kathleen Kennedy would like step down or something like that. Like he just kind of gave a common phrase that I'd heard about Kathleen Kennedy through anybody in the Star Wars community and people who like just do rumors about her getting fired and everything, and the constant misinformation about her. And so hearing that stuff, I'm like, man, like it's weird that you think that, because I know that's not a actual opinion. That's what we call a received opinion, where you've heard that from other people and you've heard it so many times that you now believe it. And as someone who was like that for a time, like I remember looking at Kathleen Kennedy, I remember looking at Lucasfilm, and I was like, you guys really dropped the ball here. Like, what the hell happened? And as I started to do more research into it and I learned more about Kathleen Kennedy, I was like, okay, I don't agree with her mentality and the way she approached either the sequels or the new Star Wars stuff, but she was also dealt a very unfair hand. I mean, she became president of the company the same year that it was sold to somebody else. I mean, imagine if one of you guys became the CEO of Microsoft today, and then I told you tomorrow that Apple is going to buy it from you, and you got to put out a new technology merging both of them in the next year. You'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You think I can do this? And so she was dealt a very unfortunate hand, and it's just sad to see that so many of these content creators now are, I'm not going to say infecting, but putting so much of these opinions into other Star Wars fans, into smaller channels, into the community in general. And now that's kind of how we all believe. You just see the same comments on certain videos of YouTube, and it's just people having the same opinion, and it's groupthink. We're putting ourselves in these groups, and that's what I've tried my damnedest to not do on the channel. I like looking at my comment section and seeing people who love the prequels but hate the sequels, people who love the sequels but hate the prequels, and people who love both, and just people who have differing opinions on Star Wars in general. And I've always loved seeing in the comments like, hey, I don't agree with your opinion, but I liked your take on this, or this was a new perspective, because I feel like that's how it should be done. It's not even, it's sadly not even relative to Star Wars, it's just being a decent human being in general, and just keeping an open mind. And we've all closed ourselves off because it's become a battlefield now in Star Wars, where everything is just do or die. I mean, people even on Twitter are mad at me because I was like, I think Jon Favreau is the closest thing to George Lucas we have right now compared to Dave Filoni. And they're like, well, that's just ridiculous. It's all Dave Filoni. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, you have to either love Dave Filoni unequivocally or you're a hater of him. Like, you can't slander him. You can't critique him in any way. And we're getting this all from Star Wars influencers, and it's hard to really pinpoint where this all started, but it would be nice if it ended.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's just, I feel like with the fandom, a lot of it is just so hard to pinpoint because there's so much like misinformation everywhere. You know, like you can't just say, oh, it's the diehard fans that are the problem, or oh, it's this like cult of fans that's the problem. Like, I mean, we normally try to not address misinformation on the podcast at all. We like to consider ourselves like a factual Star Wars podcast. So like, if there's misinformation or rumors, like the Kathleen Kennedy getting fired, or like, oh, George Lucas fired Brie Larson for the 7th time this year from Star Wars, you know what I mean? Like, we don't talk about that stuff at all. But there was the thing recently with IGN coming out and saying that the Slave One got renamed to the Fire Spray. Yeah. And we were like, right off the bat, we're like, okay, that's just not true. Like, we know that's not true. And that's the thing, is it just takes one Google search to realize that the Fire Spray is the name of the model of the ship. And that the ship's name, Boba Fett's ship's name, is the Slave One. Yeah. But the model of the ship is... So everyone who owns that model, it's a Fire Spray. And so we were just floored that people, because we saw it was all over TikTok. Like, I had like 8-10 videos in a half an hour, just people going, they just renamed the Slave One, and all it takes is that one big outlet that is reputable to say something on Twitter, and that's it. And then like people will come out like and be like, hey, that's not true, like this is the real information, and no, it's too late. These people are already like, no, you're wrong, like blah blah blah, you're just an SJW, you're just this, you're just that. And then we like are, you know, like 6-year-olds on the playground calling each other names and seeing who can be more mean to the other person. Actually, my personal thing I do is I like hearing like what content creators do with like haters and stuff like that. But I like to comment on a lot of stuff on my personal account on Twitter. And a lot of the stuff I comment on is stuff about, you know, the newer movies and like the newer TV shows, and particularly The Bad Batch and The Last Jedi. And I'll comment anything, like anything at all. It doesn't have to be about me liking the movie or liking The Bad Batch or anything. And there will be a person that comments something provocative to try to get a reaction out of me. So I've just decided every time somebody does that, I just respond with, hey, come check out my podcast. And then I just tag 1313 in it. But so like, what do you do for like, do you just, because most of the time I just ignore them, but like my new approach is so much more fun because it's like so out of the blue. Mm-hmm. But what do you do with like people that try to like provoke you and stuff like that?
Oh, I absolutely avoid being provoked. I'm someone who grew up doing the Call of Duty lobbies. I mean, the things that I heard on Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops 1 like is nothing comparable to what I hear from people online.
Oh, yeah.
And thankfully for me, I've done martial arts all my life since I was 9 years old. And so I've been fortunate enough to train with guys who actually fight in the UFC. And because they can kick my ass, I'm like, okay, like that's nice to know that there are levels to this, but it's allowed me to be humble as a person and realize that you know, these people are upset, but maybe they're not upset at me and they're trying to provoke me. It's like, okay, I have confidence in myself and in what I say to know that there's no tone when you read text. And a lot of people, when they try to provoke you, I always think in myself eternally, I'm like, man, that's just a waste of time. And I waste time on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, and I of course should be better about it. We all should, but some of it is a job for a lot of people. And so when you have people trying to provoke you, you got to ask yourself, why are they trying to provoke you? And a lot of it is just they're trying to get a reaction out of you. Mm-hmm. And if you don't give them that reaction, they're unsatisfied. Or if you just kind of make light of it, for me, I laugh at a lot of it. Like, I will refute it, but I'm never upset with anyone. There's honestly nothing in Star Wars that can actually make me upset. So if people are trying to provoke me, it's never anything that I take to heart, because I'm like, you guys don't know me. You guys know Star Wars only, but you don't know my real name. You don't know who I am as a person. And I'm not going to say I'm completely different than what I am on the channel, but this channel is not my identity. Star Wars is not my identity. So if people are genuinely trying to get me upset over my Star Wars opinions, I'm like, okay, well then look how far the bar has fallen. You guys are making this personal, and you guys are attacking me on my opinions and maybe calling me names or trying to get a reaction out of me because of Star Wars. And once I get that in my head, I'm like, Jesus, that is a sad way about going about and thinking life. And that's where I look at some of these people who believe in like the Kathleen Kennedy's getting fired rumors and all that stuff. It's like a cult and religion for them at this point, that they genuinely believe that this person is out to get them. This person does not like them. This person hates them. And I'm like, that's not how this works. And that's just a really sad way to go about life, that you think there's someone out to get you when at the end of the day, none of us are anybody. I mean, we're all living our own lives, and our lives are very complicated. And so is Kathleen Kennedy. She's just a person trying to live her life. So are the people at Lucasfilm. We're all just people at the end of the day. So if someone's trying to provoke me to get a reaction, it's like, okay, I know in terms of happiness, you're probably a little lower than me. And that's not me being better than you at any stretch of the imagination. That's just me realizing that my priorities in life are not focused around Star Wars. I love this job. I love that it's a fun side hobby, and I'm very passionate about it. If it wasn't for Star Wars, if it wasn't for George Lucas, I would have never stepped in the film industry. But now that I've been able to grow into that, I can look at it and go, wow, like, I can really appreciate the good things in life and the good things about running this, and not react to every single comment that I see that's negative. It's really unfortunate that there are Star Wars content creators who, anytime someone has something slightly negative about them to say, they make entire videos about it and refute it. And I'm like, you're spreading this into this mentality into the fandom that you cannot be criticized, and if you are, then you have hell to pay. And it's like, that's not fair to anybody. Like you're allowed to be criticized. It's the internet. That's all we do. Has the internet ever been extremely positive about somebody? You could see a old man walking a dog down the street, and the internet would be like, oh, that's sweet, and then you'd have 10 guys named Kyle in the comments saying you probably kidnapped that dog, or so many bad things. So it's just the nature of life, and I think if anyone lets a reaction come out of them, they're losing to the person who's trying to get that reaction.
I totally agree.
I think to like, you know, so myself, I'm a practicing Catholic. So today at church, the priest was doing his homily, which is like, for those who don't know that are listening, he's a homily in a Catholic church is where the priest gets up and we connect the readings of the week to a message that relates to your everyday life. And so the priest at my church is really cool because before he became a priest, he worked as an engineer. So he was in real life basically before he joined the priesthood. So he can relate to people a lot more than other priests normally can because he's lived the life that we all live before he joined the priesthood. And today he was talking about how oftentimes the things that we don't like in others are things that we don't like about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of connects to like the situation where somebody says something, they're trolling, they're trying to get a reaction out of you. Well, if that fires you up, that's because you yourself are a troll. Like, you know, like it used to really make me mad when people would poke at me on the internet, but that's because I was the same dude that would poke at other people on the internet. Mm-hmm. So like it was just the thing that I disliked about myself was the thing that would make me mad about other people. You know what I mean? And so it's just, it's such a difficult spot to be in. I think also, though, with the outrage culture of the internet, it's a lot of young people that are the viewers, and young minds are very impressionable. I mean, the male brain doesn't fully develop till 26, I think it is, right? So, like, none of us here are fully developed men yet.
What you trying to say about it? What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
But yeah, like, we're all in a situation where, you know, we're still very impressionable, and if all you see is this opinion and you revere the person that you're getting the opinion from, that's gospel to you. You know, you're just gonna go with it, and that's your reality. You know, is that, and I think that's just tough as a young person, and I really hope that it doesn't, you know, hinder the next generation. Not even just in Star Wars, but just in general. People are so impressionable. Young people are, and they're just so willing to just go with things. You know. So, I don't know.
Well, and it's also different, too, because we have social media, so it's so much easier to have impressionable people be influenced by big followings. As in, you know, before social media, when you were someone who was really renowned and appreciated, you had to have a huge and really big following. I mean, you had to be a superstar and make a lot of money off it. Nowadays, a Twitter account can have a lot of influence over people, and it's a unique way that we've learned to communicate in a very unique situation that we're at with the world, and especially the Star Wars fandom. And I'm sure that as people grow in the Star Wars fandom and as we get older, our opinions are going to change and maybe we'll kind of calm down. But it's the next generation, like you were talking about, that we kind of have to worry about. I don't want 10 years from now us to repeat history where people go, oh, these new movies suck. I really wish they would have done like the prequels, because then I'm going to quit. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm fucking done. You guys are annoying. Like, it's the same thing every 10 to 20 years. I don't care anymore. I don't want people to get disenfranchised like that with Star Wars. And I don't think they will. But with that mentality that we're talking about, they can have that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that, I think, honestly, like, for me, I think that about wraps up everything that we want. I mean, this was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you guys for having me on. This was a really, really good show.
Yeah, so before we wrap things up, one thing that we always do on Have a Chat is we always like to plug our guests' social media. So actually, pulled up right here, I'm about to share this here. This is Star Wars Only's YouTube channel right here. So let's see if I can get that shared up. Oh, here we go. Bam.
Come on, man.
Bam. I'm pretty tech savvy. Can you see that on your end?
Yes, sir. It looks
All
great.
right,
Thank
yep.
you.
So this is Star Wars Only's YouTube channel.
That's a cool banner. I really like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This Star Wars After George Lucas, this documentary that Star Wars Only made, this is a phenomenal piece.
Yes, I watched it. I really enjoyed it.
And also the Phantom Menace 20 years later. These two videos right here. Oh, and the Fans versus Disney. Those videos right there are literally some of the best Star Wars like YouTube pieces that I've seen, and I've watched a ton of YouTube in my time, Star Wars wise. And these pieces are seriously, they're so well done, and honestly, like, bravo to you, sir, for making such phenomenal content, because you just put out such great stuff so consistently. And I highly recommend everyone that's listening to this podcast right now, watching this podcast, go check out Star Wars Theory. Phenomenal YouTube channel.
Star Wars Only.
Only.
Did I really say it again?
Yes, you did it.
Oh my goodness.
Theory's a great channel too. He's the biggest one for a reason. But yeah, I make documentaries from time to time, so if you guys want to check those out, feel free to. They're definitely not good in my opinion. That they haven't aged the way I want them to, but as time goes on, I'll keep making them, and they'll keep getting better. And maybe I'll become a hypocrite and be like George Lucas and remaster them and make them better, and then never release the old versions.
But yeah, this has been the 1313 podcast. I'm Tommy.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Jackson.
And we were joined by Star Wars Only. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.